Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? Yeah, this is not the face that you wanted to see on Solder and his brother-in-law. At first I thought it was just a threat, but then I wake up to find out that Solder actually went through with this threat. So what does this mean for Iraq? What does this mean for the Iraqi Dinar? Before we get started though, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I surely do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, right now is the time to buy. Go to our friends over there at Money Metals Exchange. The link is down below in the description. If you're a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and you will get a free half ounce of silver. I'm sure by now most of you have already heard. If you haven't, well, Solder resigned. Him and all his deputies. Remember, I think Solder had 75 or 78 of the seats in Parliament. 73 or 74 of his deputies resigned. So like Solder said, he had asked for them to put together their resignation letter. And when the time came, he'd pulled the trigger on that, and sure enough he did. So what does this mean for Iraq? Well, let's think about it. Since 2003, the same corrupt people have been rotating in positions of power. This is how they got in the hot seat with their money in the first place. When Maliki was prime minister, he inherited a huge surplus of money. And then all of a sudden, it disappeared. It was gone. Iraq was in a really bad position financially. Their economy was terrible. The money was not being invested into the economy. The money was not being invested into the private sector. Instead, these group of people went all willy-nilly, created fictitious employees that collected checks. So these guys were collecting money for fake employees they created. They had backdoor schemes where contracts and deals were being made that they benefited from. Meanwhile, the Iraqi people suffered. What makes this even worse is right now, Iraq is seeing a huge abundance of money coming in from oil. And it's just been sitting there accumulating. Now you got to ask yourself, what's going to happen to all that money? The Iraqi people were already suffering due to the change in the exchange rate to the dinar. In October of 2019, these protesters rose up against the government. They resigned. That same government is now going back into power. The coordinating framework. So what good did it do? Sure, this government resigned. Sure, they had early elections. Sure, they got somebody in there like Al-Qademi and Saleh. But what good did it do? It's going to be interesting to see who it is they put in as the president and the prime minister. I was kind of hoping it would be Al-Qademi and Saleh so they could continue down this awesome path that they have started the Iraqi people on. But that doesn't look like the case. Anyways, Al-Abbasi announces the launch of different understandings after the Solder's resignation. The political blockage will not continue. The big winners of this resignation from Solder and his people, of course, is Iran. Oh, they're ecstatic. Because now they have control of Iraq, which is another reason why the people in Iraq protested, was the fact that their politicians work for Iran and not the Iraqi people. Anyways, said the Speaker of the Iraqi Parliament, Al-Abbasi, announced on Monday the launch of different understandings after the resignation of Solder's bloc's deputies, indicating that the political blockage will not continue in the next stage. Al-Abbasi said in a press conference with the Jordanian counterpart, followed by the news that the replacements of the Solder's block's representatives will be amongst the losers with the highest votes in the electoral district, explaining that the membership of any parliament members ends with the submission of the resignation. So the people that were runner-ups in the election, I guess, are going to be taking over the positions of the Solder's people who resigned. He pointed out that the political blockage will not continue in the next stage, stressing by saying there will be a different understanding after the resignation of the Solder's block's representatives. Sadr had directed earlier today the deputies of the Sadr's blocs in Iraq's parliament to hand over their resignation to Speaker of the Parliament al-Abbasi, while he thanked his allies in the Save the Homeland coalition and informed them that they are in the solution. Parliament Speaker al-Abbasi signed the resignation of the Sadr's bloc's deputies in the presence of the parliamentary bloc leader, Adari, and then commented, "Their resignations took place reluctantly," referring to efforts made by a dissuaded Sadr from this step. Sadr was focused more on the people, and this blockage was affecting the poor. But I don't think he understood by getting out of the way. I think it has just made it worse. That's just my opinion. It says after the Sadr's withdrawal, an important meeting between the poles of the tripartite to take unified decisions. It says an informed source revealed on Monday that the Kurdish leader, Barzani, and the Speaker of the House, al-Abbasi, and the head of the Sovereign Alliance, Qajar, held a meeting which he described as important to take a unified decision after the Sadr's bloc withdrawal from the Iraqi parliament. The source told the news that the meeting would take place tomorrow or after, noting that a unified decision will be taken towards the next stage after the withdrawal of the Sadr's movement's leader, Sadr, from the political process. This comes hours after the statements of the Speaker of the Iraqi Parliament, al-Abbasi, launched from the Jordanian capital, in which he commented on the Sadr's withdrawal from Parliament. Al-Abbasi said in a press conference with the Jordanian counterpart, the replacements of the Sadr's bloc's representatives would be amongst the losers with the highest votes in the electoral districts, explaining that the membership of any parliament members ends with the submission of their resignation. Now, this could be interesting because whatever these new group of people that are coming in, I'm sure what coordinating framework wants is more of their peoples to have control of the seats. They want to have the most seats. So this might prevent them from having the most seats. That might be one saving grace. So, and then the rest of this article just pretty much repeats what was up above. Surprised about the replacements, the Electoral Commission comments on the resignation of Sadr's bloc's deputies. Said the Independent High Electoral Commission in Iraq commented on Sunday that the Sadr's bloc's representatives submitted their resignations from the parliament while revealing a surprise about the replacements who would take their place. Yeah, I don't know if the coordinating framework was counting on this. I think they had in mind who they wanted there, but that might not happen. The resignation of the Sadr's bloc deputies came in response to an invitation addressed to them by the leaders of the Sadr's movement, where Parliament Speaker al-Abbasi signed the resignation in the presence of the head of parliamentary. Anyways, an official source in the Electoral Commission told the news the commission has not received until now anything official regarding the resignation of Sadr's bloc's deputies in order to present their replacements to the parliament for the purpose of taking the constitutional oath. The source said the replacements of the Sadr's bloc's representatives would be the highest losers. I don't think they're wording this right. Would be the next set of people with the highest number of votes is what they got. He pointed out the commission will collect the names and numbers of the Sadr's representatives as they are not yet known, and this matter needs time, and after receiving the resignations of the representatives officially, to search for replacements in each electoral district from which the Sadr's bloc representatives resigned. So Jafar Sadr also stepped away. Remember, his name was submitted as a candidacy for the prime minister, so obviously he has stepped away from that. I really felt like Sadr was actually going to win in this game of chicken. Now, I'm not saying I approved of everything he did. I certainly don't like the fact that he put up as a law in Parliament, and it was voted on, that they would make it illegal to have relationships with Israel. I thought that'd be really detrimental to Iraq, because I knew that it would not go over very well with the international crowd, and I was right. So, will this law change? Will it go back? Who knows? We're going to find out. When Sadr resigned, he said there was an agreement with one of the members of the coordinated framework, and that is, this will not be a consensual government. It still has to be a majority government, or he would not resign. So that was their agreement. Now, will the coordinating framework find a way to manipulate that? Will they find a way to ignore that agreement? All these things are going to be an answer here soon. All I know is this: there are a lot of corrupt people in this coordinating framework. They are all Iranian-backed politicians. This is not good for the Iraqi people. These were the people that Sauder wanted to go after. Now it looks like those who've been indicted most likely will magically have their charges dropped against them. Of course, I'm just speculating, but it's easy to assume. So Sauder has stepped away. Sauder has had all of his deputies resign from their posts. So I can't imagine there's anything now standing in the way of the coordinating framework. Iraq is once again right back to the same place they were in October of 2019 with the same group of people. So my hearts and prayers are out to the Iraqi people. I still hope some good comes out of this. As far as the exchange rate for the Iraqi dinar, yeah, I mean, the Iraqi people are more on my mind than the dinar, but let's just be honest about it. If you're going to put the same corrupt people in there, then you can imagine the surplus of money that they got is just going to whittle away. They're going to honor contracts to people who have no intentions of doing any work. It's just a bad situation. Now, at the same time, I'm pretty sure you could bet that Sauder is really going to be watching what the government does closely, and you're going to hear him express his thoughts and opinions on the government's actions. Hopefully, he still has enough power to influence any stupidity that the government might be thinking about in the future. This is a 4-year term. This isn't like before. So no more Al-Qademi. No more Saleh. A whole new government with all the same old people. That's terrible. Will Maliki go in there and try to interfere with the exchange rate? Don't get your hopes up. You see, the kickbacks that they get also come from corporations from other countries. And the kickbacks are to make sure that the labor and production stay cheap here, which means you need a devalued currency. I'm curious to see what government's going to be formed. We're going to know what the future is in Iraq here once this government is formed. And it's also going to give you an excellent idea about the future of the Iraqi dinar. Anyways, that's it for now. You guys hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel. And I surely do appreciate it. And I'll catch you later. I'm out.